seconds. Seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to CSI Iowa. I'm your host, Bob Montserrat. Sure glad you joined us tonight. Matt Montserrat is in the production booth. Tonight's show, my guest is from the Iowa State Patrol, Lieutenant Robert Hansen, and he is part of the vehicle theft unit. I know. Welcome to the show, first of all, Rob.
Thank you, Bob. It's great to be here.
And I know you have a pretty big title. It says MCSAP. I don't even know what that is. Can you explain that?
Well, I have a number of specialties as assigned by the State Patrol, and the District 15 office is where the bulk of those are housed, and technical accident investigation, the Motor Carrier Safety Assistance Program, the MCSAP acronym, vehicle theft, and the criminal interdiction unit are all housed at District 15, and I have the honor of being the district commander there.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about before you came into the position that you're in now. How long have you been with the patrol, and let's go from there.
I graduated the Department's Academy in 1987, started at the Capitol Police Division, and then transferred to the State Patrol in 1990. I served in a couple of field districts before being promoted to headquarters, where I served as a public information officer, and then later the training coordinator, where I was fortunate enough to be the academy commander for 5 separate academies. And then about 2.5 years ago, Colonel Hoy asked me to transfer out to District 15 and assume the position that I hold now.
I was going to say, we have a DPS academy going right now, and I know that, and you did it 5 times then, huh?
Yes, I did.
Wow.
Yes.
It's tough on those. You guys are tough on those recruits that come in, and it's like military academy, isn't it?
We are appropriately tough for the job that they will be asked to do when they graduate.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of cool. Was being in the patrol something that you've always wanted to do?
I guess so. My mom tells that story better than I do. It's a 3rd grade thing, she tells me. And so came home and said one night during 3rd grade that was going to be a state trooper, and
wow,
there was never anything else. So
wow, you followed through on
I don't remember it, but she does.
Well, that's interesting. So we're going to be talking about vehicle theft tonight, and it's something that I don't even think about because I've never, had a vehicle stolen. And I even mentioned this before the show started. I said, after the show, I'm probably going to make sure my cars are locked, and I'm going to take all these precautions because you're going to put the fear of theft in me, is what I'm assuming. Is that what you normally do?
Well, it's certainly not. We don't want to instill a fear in anyone. Certainly, the auto theft and the related motorcycles, watercraft, those types of things are, they're really a $5+ billion problem in our society on an annual basis. But people don't, it doesn't affect everyone. And because it doesn't affect everyone and we're all insured, it's sometimes viewed as a victimless crime, which it isn't. Mm-hmm. Because we're all paying insurance premiums. And so while you might not personally get hurt from a claim other than your deductible, somebody's paying that bill. And it's being reflected in everyone's rates. And so it's a huge problem. There's no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is a state operation that we're dealing with. Do local law enforcement agencies have similar units?
The State Patrol's Auto Theft Unit, provides a service to the other municipal agencies across the state, whether it be a sheriff's department or a police department. In our experience, only the large departments like Des Moines PD, the Lynn County Sheriff's Office, the Cedar Rapids Police Department, the Scott County Sheriff's Office, or the PDs in the Quad Cities, and others. Those are just some examples. The only folks that actively have officers assigned to property crimes and specifically auto theft. So there just isn't the personnel in a lot of departments to dedicate themselves solely toward auto theft.
And so when did the state get involved in it? as far as patrol?
It started way back in 1977, actually, in response to a salvage yard in southeast Iowa that was taking vehicles in, parting those vehicles out. At that time, it was much easier. The auto industry and the manufacturing industry hadn't yet quite kept up with the labeling vehicles, and the VIN numbers were not as complex as they are today, and so that autos at that time were ripe to be stolen and relabeled, or just stolen and moved around. So we got involved in this particular operation in 1977 because we had some personnel that had some expertise with vehicles. They got involved. It expanded over time. That operation was very successful, and it expanded over time to the point where we had a vehicle theft officer in each of our 14 patrol districts. As you advance from 77 up into the mid-90s, the industry kind of took a lot of measures. Insurance industry, manufacturing, the car makers, because that this was a big problem. So everybody kind of got together on working to solve it, and so then while it didn't go away, it kind of flattened out once they got to a certain point. It just sort of ebbs and flows now today to what we experience.
So, have manufacturers, and I know, they have theft alarms systems, remotes that you can lock your cars. I'm assuming they've made tremendous improvements since 1977 to make it more difficult to steal vehicles. Or am I wrong on that?
Well, not only it's certainly more difficult to what I would describe as a petty criminal. However, just at any craft, in what I do and what you do for a living at the lab, you can learn your craft and you can figure out the ways to do things. Those that want to steal autos still find a way.
Yeah, and that's how they make those movies, where they steal these very expensive cars and to sell them wherever, overseas. Yeah,
there's certainly anything in the movies, in action movies and that type of thing it's the edges are certainly rounded off and they make it seem really easy, and it's quite a bit harder than that, but can still be done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, like you said, I would not know how to do it, and that's not my thing. But if you're a locksmith or taking any kind of training like that, I'm sure you know how to get into vehicles, since that's what they do.
Sure, it's something that can be learned. If a person just finds the right people to teach them, just like everything else.
Yeah, just Google it. So the ISP mission, Iowa State Patrol mission, and everybody has a mission statement, when it deals with a specific thing that we're doing. And I'm assuming that has to do with investigating these crimes, for one.
Yes. We focus on 4 different areas in terms of we just have 4 vehicle theft investigators at the present time stationed around the state geographically, and we charge them with being a leader in auto theft investigations, making their services known. They do have advanced training in identifying and documenting and putting these cases together, as well as certainly the good old-fashioned police tactics in terms of if someone's doing something, we tend as law enforcement to put some energy toward them. That too, of course. In addition to that, we don't know what we don't know, so when a stolen vehicle comes in, these folks are specially trained to be able to look at that car, figure out which pieces belong to it, which pieces might belong to something else. And
what do you mean by that? Pieces of what?
Well, a car can be, for a variety of, engine, transmission, and it depends on the vehicle. The more expensive the vehicle, the more identifying features are on those vehicles. So whether if a high-dollar car, if you were to take it apart and sell all the parts, you're going to make more money than if you purchased the car outright from the dealer.
So you look for like matching numbers?
Yeah, there's lots, and in addition to those numbers that the public is aware of, there are numerous ways for those that are trained to be able to identify a vehicle and its components.
And that will not be revealed at tonight's show.
Absolutely not.
That's
correct.
What I figured. Okay, so and the fact is, insurance companies are very interested in what you're doing too.
Yeah, we get a lot of assistance from the National Insurance Crime Bureau, the NICB, and anybody that may have received some literature about auto theft or even the theft of electronics, that sort of thing. The National Insurance Crime Bureau, they're funded by the insurance industry, if you will, and they assist law enforcement and the insurance agencies in combating, insurance fraud and so forth.
Yeah. So, how big is the problem here in Iowa? Actually, you always think of many people think of Iowa as a farmland, and nothing really happens here, and there's a lot of land and very few people. So how could we have any crime here? But it is a problem then.
Oh, it's definitely a problem. There's more than 3,800 vehicles stolen annually in the state of Iowa. That's with the average cost of a vehicle nationally at valued, or the average value of a stolen vehicle at just over $6,500. That represents a significant financial loss to the citizens of Iowa. About 48% of those cars are stolen in the 9 largest counties by population. So it does auto theft, and nationally it trends the same. Auto theft is a larger problem in the larger cities and counties.
3,800, you say here?
Yes, 3,800.
Okay, and I guess my question is then, some vehicles are stolen more so than others, and I guess my question is why? Why are some more attractive than others?
That's a very good question, and it can be broken down into the reason the thief, into the factor of the reason the thief wants to use the vehicle. That's a factor. The vehicle that's available, to some degree, and the value of the vehicle. So all 3 of those components and a few others, when you mix them together, the Honda Accord, for instance, always appears on the top 10 list. Always. Ford F-150, Dodge truck, always appears on the top 10 list.
But they're not high-value vehicles.
No, they're not high-value vehicles. They are, however, available.
Because they're plentiful.
Because they are plentiful. And they also, in terms of if a person who's doing the acquiring of this vehicle, stealing the vehicle, if you will, what is their purpose? Is their purpose to use the vehicle for some sort of heinous purpose, another crime, if you will? There may be on a lot of these pickups, the tires and wheels, if they're aftermarket, are worth significant amounts of money. So you can acquire the vehicle for the purpose of taking just the wheels and tires and leaving the vehicle sit, because the wheels and tires are untraceable for the most part. Although the tires do have a serial number, it's virtually impossible to recover them. Whereas the components of the vehicle, if we were to recover those, it'd be very easy to trace that vehicle back.
Well, I used to have an old '84 Corvette, and I traded it for a motorcycle just this year. But I used to have these lug locks. We had to have a special tool. Are they effective?
Oh, absolutely.
I wasn't sure.
Sure.
I never had them stolen because I figured they were too old to steal. But
the things that a person, whether it's a club, the club that everybody
does anybody
talks
use
about,
the club anymore?
People still use the club,
really?
Believe it or not. Anything that and the wheel locks, those things are all effective to the point that the person doing the stealing has to decide how much they want to put up with. If it's easier to get a different vehicle or motorcycle, then they're gonna go for the easy one. However, if they still want, they really just need to have the same kind of wrench that you have stored in your. A lot of people store it in the glove box, by the way.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is not where you should put it.
You have to have it there when you need it. Correct.
That's correct. You need to if you're going to put wheel locks, lug nut locks, store that Allen wrench, whatever it is, conceal it somewhere in the car where a thief wouldn't find it by breaking the window and obtaining it.
I know. I made it too easy, but I never had a problem. Like I said, I think it was too old. But you said the Accord was kind of on the top 10. The Civic was another one that's pretty common.
Yes.
Camry, of course, is one that you see a lot of, and they're very reliable cars.
Yeah, most of the cars that are on the top 10 are all cars that are plentiful. very plentiful.
Mm-hmm.
Dodge Caravan, the one vehicle, the Acura Integra, which is really just a shell of the Honda Accord. The two-door Accord and the Acura Integra, essentially the same vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Right. Absolutely. Well, I don't see mine on there. I have a Chevy Equinox, so I think I'm safe.
For now.
Probably saying, yeah, for now.
Chevy sells a lot of those. You might hit the list in a couple of years.
Okay, so what are the types of auto theft then?
Well, yeah, as I've briefly kind of mentioned, it's one of the reasons people still steal cars are to use them. They want to use them for if they're available and somebody just wants to get from point A to point B. People call that joyriding. It's still a felony theft of acquiring someone else's property, but or more commonly associated with a criminal act. Someone's planning on doing a larger theft. They need a pickup to go steal a trailer. They want to. These folks don't use their own car for somewhat obvious reasons. If they get into trouble, they can just walk away from it and find transportation back to their home or business or whatever the case might be. So that's one of the biggest ones, and again, why the list typically shows a group of 10 vehicles that are readily available. Certainly, insurance fraud. Insurance fraud is a big problem. Certainly, people get behind in their payments. They lose their job. The photo that's being shown now, represents a vehicle that was intentionally destroyed by fire by the owner, so that the insurance would pay off, and all he would be on the hook for would be the deductible.
How would one know that this was fraud or a...
Well, yeah, in terms of the evidence that you all collect at the lab, there's really nothing left. That's where first of all, you have to identify the vehicle, which can be sort of challenging. If the vehicle is never identified, the insurance company will still have to determine whether or not to pay the claim. So if the vehicle is not identified, if you can't say for sure that this is the car, insurance is going to pay out, and you have no crime because you can't prove that's the car.
Is that because the serial numbers are destroyed in the fire?
Yeah, the heat. Certainly the many component numbers that I mentioned will be affected by the heat, and if the public VIN, which is attached to the firewall, most folks know where that is, right in front of the driver where the windshield meets the firewall. If we're not able to identify that or any component number that goes with it, I will say that we don't miss very many of those when we try to identify one, but
right.
They are challenging.
Now, would you bring in like the fire marshal to look at a burned vehicle to see if they can determine cause of the fire?
We have on occasion, to consult for an addendum to our report, if you will. But for the most part, a vehicle gets so hot with the fuel that it's pretty hard to determine what actually caused the fire.
Okay, so the insurance companies are really at a loss in a sense because they're probably going to pay out, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Unless there's some kind of investigation that proves otherwise.
Well, and there's a lot of ways that our vehicle theft investigators and other police detectives can work on that. A vehicle's reported stolen on a particular date, and someone sees a vehicle burning in a field several days later, with all the eyewitnesses that may see the vehicle being driven by someone. We've certainly tripped up an owner with that information. You report a vehicle stolen today, let's say, and someone sees you driving it tomorrow, and then it burns up. Then obviously you've advanced that cause that the owner's not telling the truth.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that you're going to do is do at least some investigation into that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you think about the world of video cameras, and every place your car gets captured, there's a lot of resources for investigators.
That's true. I heard something like you're on some kind of video camera 40 times a day, is what I heard.
You know, yeah. It
And when
could
you
be.
look around, you see these cameras everywhere, traffic, and when you walk in the buildings and everywhere.
Yeah. And
So-
we, for the purposes of auto theft, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a very good thing.
Yeah. Well, we need to take a break, and we're going to get back talking more about types of auto theft when we come back from break. But you're listening to CSI Iowa on webcast1live.com, and we'll be back after these messages.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
At the BrownellsPoliceStore.com, we specialize in a full line of duty gear for military, law enforcement, and security professionals. PoliceStore.com has a great selection of high-quality and dependable police supplies, all backed by Brownell's 100% unconditional lifetime guarantee. The Brownells Training Group offers firearms training for military, police, professional security, and qualified citizens taught by professionals who are recognized for their knowledge and real experience. Check us out today at PoliceStore.com/CSI.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, listen, watch, chat. This is Webcast One Live. Programs on webcast1live.com are brought to you in part by KDC Builders, building custom homes for how you live. KDC will take your dreams and turn them into reality. Go to our website, kdcbuilt.com, or call Hannah Inman at 515-975-9990. And Tom Coates and ConsumerCreditOfAmerica.com. Are you overwhelmed with mounted credit card debt and feel there's no way out? Well, there is. Call 1-800-955-5765 for Consumer Credit of America. That's ccofamerica.com.
Welcome back to CSI Iowa. My guest tonight is Lieutenant Robert Hansen, and with the Iowa State Patrol. We're talking about vehicle theft, and like I said before, when we start talking about these things, I start wondering, okay, am I taking precautions to try to prevent theft? And I know that when I get out of my vehicle, I do automatically lock it. You know, even if I think it's even in front of my house, I find myself, you just lock the car because it's easy. It's not like in the old days when you used to have to, we didn't have automatic locks, and we'd have to do it the manual way. And if you lived on a farm, a lot of times you just wouldn't lock it at all. You just leave it open, leave the keys in. And so I think we're more aware, and it's more convenient, and so we do that. But auto theft, obviously, if we have 3,800, right?
Yes.
A year, then that means that it's a problem, and even in Iowa. But we were talking about types of auto theft, and what was the next one that you wanted to cover?
Well, the thieves have come up with a way to mask the identity of a car and pass it off as an actual different car, and that term is referred to in the insurance and in law enforcement circles as cloning. They'll take a car that they possess. They possess the paperwork to this car. They have the title. They own the car. This particular car that's up right now, this was registered in 7 different states as that's a Ford Expedition. At one time, back in 1999, there's quite a bit of dating on this particular case. But they have the documents to this car. They go out and steal a car just like it somewhere. And this occurred all over the nation. And in the state that they want to re-register the car, the first thing they do is they make the public information look as if it matches the one car that they already own. So they do some altering. and they have to be pretty skilled in terms of creating a VIN plate and some of the public stickers that are on the vehicle that are used in manufacturing. And we're going to talk about some of those things a little bit later, I believe. But they'll make this car, they'll mask this car, if you will. Now, to a trained investigator, it's going to take maybe a half an hour to determine what this car really is. But they're able to pass it off. They're able to package it with documents, and they're able to sell it clean. Because remember, they own the original title to the vehicle that they started with, and then they'll duplicate this over and over again. Typically, there's someone that works in the governmental offices that assist them with the documents. And so at different times, as different states put in safeguards, these criminal operations will move around the country to the weakest link, if you will, wherever they can obtain easy paperwork with the fewest questions, because they don't want anybody questioning them. But if they can get a good title in Oklahoma, they'll go to Oklahoma and do this. If they can get a good title based on what they have in California, they'll go to California and do this. And it's other than masking the vehicle, it's pure profit, because that Ford Expedition that we had up was worth several $1,000s, and they steal a car, got a little bit of time in making the public appearance of it look right, and probably a little bit of money changes hands to get documents through some of those governmental offices, unless they make them themselves, which we've seen. Some pretty talented people can make watermarks and different things, at least close enough that the average Joe wouldn't know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just pure profit for them.
Because it's stolen, so there's no purchasing, and then they change the appearance, but not totally, but just enough.
Really, it's just the public appearance of that VIN number. So it's what you and I would look at if we bought a vehicle from a private citizen. We would look at the paperwork, we would go look at the public VIN number, and we might look at the sticker on the door, the driver's door. That's about as far as the average person would go. And so you make just that look good. You sell the vehicle, you get either a cash transaction or a certified check at a bank. You cash it at that bank. Nobody knows who you are, and you're on down the road.
Right.
Off to do it again.
Huh. Now, would they sell these vehicles like at a used car lot, or would it be like put it on Craigslist type thing?
Well, it all depends on the strength and reach of the criminal enterprise. Certainly, these vehicles end up on car lots from time to time, but they often do that after 3 or 4 transactions.
Okay, so
whether it be a salvage yard or whether it be an auction, and again, it's hard to put your finger on exactly who's in the know and where it becomes a victim, if you will.
So, what about the person that purchases a car, with good intents and trying to be honest, and they purchase a car like this? How would anyone know? Or are there a lot of them out there that people just don't know?
Well, it's certainly not uncommon for us to get involved here in Iowa with 3 or 4 of these a year, where the person that is in possession of the car is not aware that it's a clone.
And how do you find those people?
Typically, there's something happens where there's an accident.
Okay.
They're getting work done at a garage. The higher end vehicles, like Lexus, if you will, the technician at Lexus might notice something and let their service manager know, and then their service manager's in an impossible spot. Then, they need to tell the owner, and lots of times, good folks like you and I that don't commit crimes, we want to do the right thing, so we pick up the phone and call law enforcement. Hey, come give me a hand. And the next thing you know, someone's explaining to them that their car isn't what it seems. It actually belongs to somebody in another state, and State Farm Insurance or Progressive Insurance or Allstate or any number of insurance companies that I could name has paid a claim on it, and they actually own it because it's not what it appears to be.
Whoa, then what happens to that innocent person that made that purchase? I don't know. I'm just curious.
Well, it's like any crime. They're the victim. And there is no payee unless their insurance, which a lot of times, the insurance industry, this is a common problem. You know, I honestly can't tell you exactly how those things
Right,
get resolved.
but it could be considered a theft in a sense.
It is a theft, but it becomes a civil matter between the person possessing the vehicle is actually not possessing what they thought. So that's the fraud, and they are the victim. So not only did the person, as we talked about earlier, the person who had the car stolen, has more than likely been paid off by their insurance company if they had one.
Right.
So while they were the first victim, they may be the least affected victim because they may only be out their deductible and whatever personal possessions they were unable to, get returned to them when it was stolen out of the car.
Oof, it's complicated.
It is very complicated, and it's a terrible thing. And certainly there's some things that folks can do, and I think later on here we'll be able to chat in detail about some of those.
Okay, how about parts? You mentioned parts as theft.
Certainly there are vehicles that are stolen for their parts. The more valuable an engine, the more valuable transmission. Not so much factory, but for those folks that put vehicles, put a lot of money into a vehicle. This particular photo that we have now is just an example of it's not a vehicle that people would associate as a vehicle, but you tow that behind a truck. That's a high-powered generator that folks might use at an outdoor event or venue for all the town celebrations like we have in Iowa. That particular one right there is worth upwards of $20,000, and so the value of that was great enough that somebody brought it across state lines and tried to sell it to one of our guys, and we intercepted it and them in the process. So it's just the property value does factor into what people steal.
Now, would this be reported, or would you know that this was a reported stolen vehicle?
Sure. This is an identifiable piece of equipment. While people don't associate it with a vehicle, there are a couple of 3 ways on that particular piece of equipment that an officer can identify it, and beyond the obvious that the average person would be able to see, there's a couple of other ways that they can identify that and get it to pop up in the NCIC system, or and get a hold of that agency that made the first report.
Okay, yeah, and then once it's reported, then you know where to send it, or how to get it back to the person where it was stolen.
Yep, most of the time, we get a hold of the law enforcement agency that made the initial report, and the majority of the time, it's owned by there's a claim on it by an insurance company because they paid off on it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is the part that I guess we also need to know is how do you prevent somebody from stealing your vehicle, or on the same note, how do you prevent yourself from buying a stolen vehicle? Either one.
Yeah, the best laid plans is the first thing I would say. It could happen to anybody, but there are steps that, certainly to keep your car from being stolen. First of all, as you mentioned earlier, always take the keys out. Always lock the car. Do not leave a key to your car hidden in your car somewhere. Thieves will, verifiable by criminals who interview after conviction or after sentencing, and they agree to talk to the law enforcement officers that arrested them. They'll tell us. They'll go if they need wheels, they'll go to the mall, and they'll just walk along first of all and find a car that's unlocked. Then, once it's unlocked, now they're going to find out what's in it. I'm going to rummage around in it, and I'm going to find out, did somebody leave their iPod? Did somebody leave their laptop? Did somebody leave, not so much anymore because music is digital, but at one time, a stack of CDs, would be gone. Mm-hmm. Right down to if you leave a mound of change in your cup holder, you should expect sooner or later somebody might value that $13 or $8 or whatever's there. Doesn't seem like much, but you're enticing a criminal. Mm-hmm. So you shouldn't do that. And never hide that key. They're going to get in, they're going to rummage around your glove box. They're going to rummage around everywhere they can think of. And if they find a key, they're more likely to drive off with your car. So don't leave a key in your car. A lot of people do it.
Right.
It is just not a good practice.
Well, they have those little magnetic keyholes. Of course, most keys won't fit in that anymore. Because they have the big fobs with them or built-in fobs. So a lot of times but they used to have magnetic. You stick it on the bottom of your car. I don't know if they still would crawl under there to look for that, but most people do try to hide a key somewhere on the vehicle. But you're saying that's not a good idea.
That is not a good idea. And with the advancements in keys, as you move up in model years, the manufacturers are going to take that away from us because these keys have to be within reasonable proximity of the car.
True.
So
for the push button start,
and that's part of the advancement in the auto industry now. But hide a key. If you need to hide a key, hide a key in your billfold. Have your wife hide a key in her purse. Either put it in one of the inner pockets that you never use, or stitch up one of your pockets so that it stays in there tight. So you've got that extra key, but don't leave it in the car.
Okay, so that way you just carry it on your person.
Right.
All right, we'll get back to more of the how do you prevent, but we need to take a break again. All these shows will be posted on my Facebook page, which is CSI Iowa. Just type that in the search bar, and it'll take you to these shows. They're all archived there. And we'll be back after these messages.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
At the BrownellsPoliceStore.com, we specialize in a full line of duty gear for military, law enforcement, and security professionals. PoliceStore.com has a great selection of high-quality and dependable police supplies, all backed by Brownell's 100% unconditional lifetime guarantee. The Brownells Training Group offers firearms training for military, police, professional security, and qualified citizens taught by professionals who are recognized for their knowledge and real experience. Check us out today at PoliceStore.com/CSI.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, listen, watch, chat. This is Webcast One Live. Programs on webcast1live.com are brought to you in part by KDC Builders. Building custom homes for how you live. KDC will take your dreams and turn them into reality. Go to our website, kdcbuilt.com, or call Hannah Inman at 515-975-9990. And Tom Coates and ConsumerCreditOfAmerica.com. Are you overwhelmed with mounted credit card debt and feel there's no way out? Well, there is. Call 1-800-955-5765 for Consumer Credit of America. That's ccofamerica.com.
Welcome back to CSI Iowa. My guest tonight is Lieutenant Robert Hansen, excuse me. We've been talking about vehicle theft, and we were into auto theft prevention, and you had a number of things you mentioned. And I know I like to hide keys, though I don't on my own vehicle. I don't hide a key, but I've done it in the past when they used to be very small and flat, and now they're so big and bulky it's hard to hide those. But then some of them have the chips in them too, so that makes it a little hard. But anyway, continue on how to prevent auto theft.
Yeah, one of the we mentioned there's more than 3,800 vehicles that are stolen annually, typically in Iowa, and believe it or not, a lot of those are left running in the major metropolitan areas, as I mentioned, and that's opportunity for those crimes. So it doesn't matter if you're going into the post office or you're at Quick Trip getting a coffee. Shut your car off, take your keys. That alone would prevent a number of the auto thefts that we have in Iowa.
Well, let me ask you this, since we're on that. I have this remote start, which you have to have, your car has to be locked. I'm assuming that they couldn't, even if you're in the store, if it's remotely started and locked, it should be okay.
Sure. Yeah. If you want to hit the remote, if you want to get out and hit the remote start, we have the same, that the vehicle has to be locked, and actually when the door opens, the vehicle shuts off.
Okay, so that's a good
So
thing.
there's a lot of features with the auto starts. If it doesn't come with the manufacturer, certainly if you have one installed, ask the technician what it will and won't do, and set it up for the best security features.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Certainly, that title that you have for your vehicle, assuming the bank doesn't have it, but if you have the title, don't keep it in the vehicle. You would be just very surprised at how many times when I was working the road as a field trooper, how many times you ask somebody for their registration, driver's license, so forth. They hand you their driver's license and their title.
Ooh.
The title should be in a safe place, wherever it is you keep your valuables. So you don't have those titles. That cloning that I mentioned, that would be the full meal, if you will, for a criminal if they can obtain your car and have the title, because then they can transfer it.
Yeah.
They can get it quickly transferred and then take it to another state and quickly transfer it. And now you're running behind. You've got to now involve 3 different law enforcement agencies in order to catch up to this car, and that's hard to do because law enforcement's busy.
Yes, absolutely.
So, certainly folks that use an anti-theft, whether it's just an audible alarm that sends the horn off, or OnStar, LoJack, great, absolutely great tools. Again, it comes down to what people can afford. Certainly my advice is if you value the vehicle you have, and it's worth the investment. Obviously, the higher the value of the vehicle, the better the extra protection would be. Really just try to use a lot of common sense with not making yourself and your vehicle an easy target.
Yeah, and you just got to figure out ways to accomplish that, like not keeping things in plain sight.
Right. Keep that whether if you buy a new iPad and you get in your car from the Apple store and you take the iPad out but you leave the box and you put the lid back on the box, somebody walks by the car, oh hey, there's a new iPad in that car. Now never mind to them that it started out as I want that iPad if it's in there, and then if you leave a key in your car, pretty soon your car's gone.
Yeah.
And if you don't leave that iPad box in there,
it wouldn't be tempting.
They're going to go on to the vehicle that does.
Yeah. What about like GPSs, the portable ones? Are they something that thieves would want?
They certainly have been in the past with the advancements in the the smartphone technology. Certainly more and more people are using their smartphones for directions.
Right. And
then they're not. We have seen a drop in some degree, but they're still a valuable. If it's easy.
Right.
The car's unlocked and it's there.
But it may not be worth breaking into to get.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Depends on the criminal, what their purpose is.
Okay, so what else is being done to prevent theft?
Well, if you you see a lot of folks engrave their property, whether it be their tools or same thing with your car. If you put extra things into your car, different car stereo, some bigger speakers or whatnot, anything that you have in there, including tools and other things, if it's engraved, you're less of a target because they can't move that property for a profit. Certainly that's encouraged, and a lot of people are etching their VIN number on their glass, and so on their windows and on their windshields. The glass is valuable, just like the wheels and tires, the seats, those things that don't have markings. Glass is valuable, very expensive. If you've had a window replaced lately, you have some idea of what that costs. So you can buy self-etching, do-it-yourselfer if you want from the just search for it on the internet, or maybe an auto supply store or home improvement warehouse may have some of those things. But you etch on that glass, and a thief comes up and is deciding which vehicle to take. If you've etched your glass, they may wonder what else you've done. And to a similar vehicle that is more available, they're going to choose easy pickings.
Okay.
Most of the time.
I never heard that before, to etch your glass.
Sure.
Any particular glass or all your glass?
Your side windows. Yep. Yeah, you'll see them. You can, like I said, search for it on the internet, and you'll see how people do it, and there's do-it-yourself, or you can take it and have it done.
Okay.
Some insurance companies a few years ago were participating in programs where they help people get that done. Certainly, again, the greater the value of the vehicle, the more important it is to do things like this.
Okay. And of course, I told you I traded my car off for a motorcycle, but I'm not aware of motorcycle thefts, but I've heard about it. But I'm assuming it's a problem.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a problem. Whether it's a dirt bike or a Harley Davidson motorcycle, we've got a Yamaha dirt bike that was recovered. That's probably motorcycles, ATVs, and construction equipment are the things that seem to appear in terms of recoveries, most frequently by our troopers. And so, in motorcycles, if you leave them outside, you leave them unlocked, you don't chain them up, they're pretty easy to take. And so, certainly, anytime you can secure them, you should do it.
Well, how would they take them? They just pick them up and walk away with them? Or?
2 guys in a pickup truck. And that thing's gone in 30 seconds.
Now that seems lighter than some of the bigger bikes. How about the bigger bikes?
Sure, the bigger ones you're going to see them with. If you don't lock the bike, they can make it roll or drag it.
The steering wheel
with a winch and a trailer. Less than 3 or 4 minutes, that thing's in the back of a trailer and gone.
So locking the forks is really a good idea.
Always on a motorcycle.
I haven't done it yet.
Even when it's in your garage.
I haven't done it yet.
Lock it.
So I better do it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, you recover watercraft too?
Sure. A little less, infrequently, but we do see watercraft. And, they're going to take what's popular and a little easier. Law enforcement presence, if you think about it, at boating, whether you're a fisherman or whether you're, use the water sports, there's not a big law enforcement presence in terms of checking things over. So it's definitely a problem, and you're going to want to check those boats over when you purchase them if you don't purchase them from a dealer.
Now, they're normally taken just sitting on the wheels. I mean, or when they're mounted on. Is that how they're stolen, or is it just? Sure.
Again, it's opportunity. If you leave your boat out and you don't secure that trailer, then to a thief, it's easy pickings.
Okay, so how do we protect ourselves then?
Well, there are a couple different ways. There's how to protect yourself when you're going to sell a car, so that your liability to that car is diminished and is taken away, because you are, after all, selling it. So when you sell a car, sell a vehicle, a motorcycle, an ATV, a watercraft, anything that has a serial number, a piece of construction equipment, a bobcat, a generator, whatever that is. And it was certainly always, first of all, to avoid the fraud angle right off the bat, make sure you're accepting a form of payment that's secure, whether it's cash or certified check. Always, you may not know that person. If it's your neighbor, you know where he lives, you might take his personal check. Mm-hmm. But anybody else, that should be something that you, as the seller, make sure that your form of payment is secure. And then always prepare a bill of sale. Keep a copy of the bill of sale so that there's a documented date that the vehicle was sold. List the public VIN number, the price of the vehicle, the names of the seller and the buyer. Because what can happen is you sign your title over, person that buys it could leave that title open and not go to the DOT in our state or another state and transfer it into their name. If they leave it open and they're out driving it around on fraudulent plates, where they just stick a set of license plates on them that don't match the car, if they get into an accident, there will be that state of figuring out who owns this car. And you've more than likely dropped your insurance coverage on the car. You may or may not have replaced it. But to have a document, again, kept with your valuables, your valuable papers and things, keep that bill of sale and maybe even a copy of the check if you want to. And that way, if someone, police officer, rings you up or contacts you and says, hey, you own this car? No, sir, I don't. Or no, ma'am, I don't. Here's the proof. And that's a closed issue. You'll stay out of the liability.
Mm.
And then as far as purchasing, that's where it gets, it's really, it can be a difficult thing. And the less experienced you are at understanding a vehicle, the more important I would say it is that you buy from someone that you view as reputable, whether it be a car dealer, whether it be your neighbor, because you really should look for that public VIN. And there's also, I think we've got a picture of what that VIN looks like for those folks that aren't aware of that. But that public VIN will be just down in front of the driver, where the windshield meets the firewall. This is a GM VIN number. Fords and Chryslers, they start. There's a very sophisticated way that all those numbers will build that car back to what it is. For those that are specially trained. The G, for instance, just to give you one example, is General Motors. That would be an F if it's a Ford. Beyond that, that's those numbers really help investigators. So we don't talk about those things. But inspect that VIN. Does it look right to you? You should be able to see it. Mm-hmm. If you can't see it standing outside the car, there's potentially a problem that you should investigate further. Why can't you? Is the vehicle really old? Really, really old? Again, back to prior to the 1970s, that sort of thing. The second way so you look at that public VIN, the second thing you could do is you could open up the driver's door and you could take a look at the sticker that's required by the federal government on manufacturing. And that sticker, it's more, the VIN number should match, first of all. You see that's a Ford, because of that second character that I mentioned. And also, it says it's built by Ford. There's a number of things on there that would help an investigator. But more importantly, to the citizen, you want to make sure that there is a sticker there, and if there isn't, you should investigate further. And that VIN should match. If you open the door and you don't find a sticker, you might see something where the sticker's just been taken off. Again,
highly suspicious. If you see that.
It might be innocent. There could be a reason, but it's certainly for you to investigate further. There's a number of ways that you can take that VIN. Your insurance agent's going to need that VIN to insure your vehicle, and they can put that VIN into their system. And if you tell them you're buying a 1998 Ford, and you give them a VIN, and your insurance agent should be able to tell you whether that's a 1998 Ford, and they'll tell you, this VIN says this is a 1999. The fellow I'm buying this from says this is a 1998. I need to look a little further at this. And so there's a number of ways. Certainly, you can't watch television these days without seeing a commercial about Carfax. And again, certainly don't endorse or condone any kind of business, but they do a good job of. And there's other ways, but that's one way that people have heard of, that you can check history records. You can see where that vehicle may have been. You can ask a dealer for that, of course, but you could also run that for yourself if you're buying from a private individual.
Are there some other than Carfax?
All
I hear is Carfax.
Yeah, you can go to the car dealer. If you're buying a General Motors car, you can go to a General Motors dealership with a VIN, and they can help you with it.
Okay.
Tell you some public things. They won't be able to tell you specifically what the history is like Carfax can, but they will be able to tell you if the vehicle that you're purchasing matches the VIN number that you're providing.
Okay.
And certainly you want to consider reputation of the seller. If you know that person, there's a lot more of indicators to there that you're probably buying what you think you're buying, or dealers. If you're buying from an individual, make conversation with them if you don't know them. Find out how rooted they are in your community. Make an assessment. Again, if there's any other red flags, you might put those things together, and there's lots and lots of vehicles out there. So if you need to pass on one that you don't feel good about, that's okay. Pass on it, move on to another one. Make sure you know, the other important thing that happens once in a while is people don't come away with a title when they make a sale. You know, they have to provide you with a title of that vehicle, so make sure you're going to get a title. If they say I got to pay the bank off, then you can make your check out to the bank to protect yourself. You can pay the bank. You find out if it's on a local bank, you can pay the bank and that person, or meet them at the bank, if you will, to do the transaction, and then the bank will release the lien right in your presence, and you'll know that the title will in fact come to you then.
So you're using them as a security blanket in a sense to
Sure,
to help
absolutely.
you.
Protect yourself. Buyer beware.
Yeah, and is there anything? For instance, I traded a vehicle, so there was no cash exchange. It was just a trade, you know, a trade of titles. Is there anything you apply the same rules on that?
Yeah, you traded with a private individual.
Yes.
Yeah, I would have a bill of sale document that just lays out who you are and what you're selling to whom and what you're accepting in return, with the VIN number, with, you know, those things up front. And certainly, you know, it helps to know you are talking to who you say you're talking to. And I don't have a problem showing if I'm going to sell something or buy something, I don't have a problem showing them my Iowa driver's license. This is who I am. And if the person that you're buying or selling it from isn't comfortable with that, you should ask yourself why.
Yeah. Now, can the DOT determine problems with the title that comes in? Is there any way that they can determine that this is not valid, or these numbers don't match, or anything like that?
Oh, certainly. The DOT has a number of investigators that work driver's license and title fraud, and, you know, folks that try to pass a fraudulent title or create a fraudulent title. It's pretty hard to do. There's a lot of security in those things, but it does happen. And so you'll want to make sure that anytime you take an official document like that, you want to be looking for that watermark. If it doesn't have a watermark, you shouldn't accept it.
But they do, right? I mean, if you take it to the busy place for, you know, like in Polk County, to, you know, change or exchange titles, don't they look? Aren't they trained to?
Yes, they are. You know, the things that you have to worry about is when they're bringing a title in from a different state.
Oh, okay. Right.
If
you're not familiar with it, then.
And that's where some of that cloning that we talked about earlier goes.
Okay.
There are ways to detect it. It just often gets missed because you're bringing a title in from a different state. It looks to be real, and it may be real, but it may not be signed by the right person, or where in Iowa you're going to pick those things up.
You know, it's kind of almost a scary thing in a way. Now that, you know, hearing all of these things and the things that we should be doing. And that, you know, you think to yourself, boy, do I have a stolen vehicle? Maybe I shouldn't be worrying about that. It surely would have been found out by now.
Well, we have millions of cars that are on the road in Iowa. I'm not sure the number. I think it's upwards of 13 or 14 million, I believe.
Oh.
You know, lots of businesses obviously have vehicles. So we have a lot more registered vehicles in the state of Iowa than we have registered drivers or citizens. So, but you know, most of them are good to go.
Okay.
But, you know, with 3,800, you don't want to be one of those victims.
Right, and that's every year.
Yep, that's every year. So, little things like don't leave it running, don't leave the keys in, little things like that will protect you from the vast majority of these things.
Well, thanks for coming and telling, you know, all of this information, because it's valuable information, and sometimes we don't maybe, you know, think about. We may get careless on some of these things. We're so excited to get a new vehicle, or not a new, but new to you, that we could easily make mistakes or screw up in a parking lot or around Christmas when gifts are stolen, and all of those things that take place. So we have to be very cautious. I think that's what you're saying, is be careful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, my guest tonight was Lieutenant Robert Hansen. And we've been talking about vehicle theft. You've been watching CSI Iowa on Webcast One Live. Sure glad you joined us. We'll see you next time. Good night.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
At the BrownellsPoliceStore.com, we specialize in a full line of duty gear for military, law enforcement, and security professionals. PoliceStore.com has a great selection of high-quality and dependable police supplies, all backed by Brownell's 100% unconditional lifetime guarantee. The Brownells Training Group offers firearms training for military, police, professional security, and qualified citizens taught by professionals who are recognized for their knowledge and real experience. Check us out today at PoliceStore.com/CSI.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.